What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Movie Emporium's TV review of the Apple TV Plus original series, Masters of the Air. This will follow part 5, which is directed by Bodin and Ryan Fleck. Okay, so this was quite the episode. Probably the best episode of the series, one of the better episodes of television I've seen in a while. I have complained in the past about the series not doing a lot of character development, but I think this does a pretty good job of giving us that character development when it comes to like the nature of how difficult it is to lose your comrades and friends in war, how difficult it was for these missions to play out, and kind of the nature of the PTSD that will probably follow the rest of the series, because this seems like it's going to get into some really difficult and different territory when it comes to what happens next, because the Royal Flush mission, which is part of this bigger, grander mission, because I was reading up on this a little bit, I don't know the whole thing, but it was a part of this like deceptive mission where, you know, they were trying to cause a lot of chaos in the war to try to move it along and try to kind of finish it. But the Royal Flush was also a plane that Bucky, of course, flew and to fly into Munster, however you pronounce it, to basically take down this rail yard. And I love what this episode is doing. I don't love the fact of what happened, but I love the fact that there is some stakes to it. There is some kind of levity to what's going on, because they're going to bomb, I think, this rail yard, which is very close to the city center, when it is going to cause deaths to a lot of the population. And you see Bucky not really care, but the other individuals are like, should we really be doing this? You know, it's a really interesting kind of back and forth dichotomy of just like how difficult it is to make these decisions. And you kind of see it play out. You see how Bucky is still kind of upset about Buck, you know, possibly have died. I didn't really talk about it in the last episode, but there is, you know, if you read the real story, you know that he doesn't die, but Buck, you know, quote unquote, is dead at this point. And it's a really kind of difficult thing to watch, because on top of that, they're watching an Abbott Costello movie, and they're one of the air pilots is constantly watching the light because they're waiting for the next mission to happen. And I found that really fascinating. You can tell this war is starting to take toll. People are dying that they were friends with, that they, you know, had a good pairing with. You know, there's a point where one of the characters, kind of like a bunch of the newer people come back, I think it's Rosenthal or something like that, and one of them has written a letter, and their bunks have been cleared out because they thought they were dead. And so one of the pilots had written a letter explaining that, you know, their son or parent has died and stuff like that, or their husband or wife or whatever. And it's a really potent moment. It really is, because it plays later on to the story, especially after this bombing run in Munster, that really is kind of impactful. And that's a really kind of, it's a really great storytelling motivational aspect, because if you think about it, you know, each mission that they fly, even though they only have to fly 26 or 27 missions, each one is going to be dangerous, because you have the Luftwaffe, you have the German planes, you have everybody shooting at them. So there's the mortality rate goes extremely high, and that's what you see in this episode. You've seen in other episodes this season, and that's what this episode does kind of really well and potent and impactful. And I really appreciate that, because it really does give a lot of levity to what these characters are having to go through. And on top of that, Crosby, who is the navigational individual, gets promoted to lead of the navigational group, and so therefore he's making the decisions about who flies and stuff like that. And so they are going on the attack run for Munster, which is the main portion of this episode. And so with that said, it was just an incredibly well put together episode when it comes to just kind of the dimensions of the characters. And when we get into like the airplane stuff, the bombing run and stuff like that, it's once again top tier material, because there is some things in here that will never leave my leave my brain when it comes to story, not only shooting of storytelling elements, but just of the chaotic nature, of the horrifying nature, of the visceral nature. You know, there are the typical scenes where you see the gunners, you know, shooting at the German planes and stuff like that. You see the navigators trying to figure out when the bomb's gonna, you know, when they're gonna officially go off and you know take off and stuff like that. And then we start seeing the 100th group start losing planes. They even count down when they're losing planes. They lose 13 and then 12, and then they're down to 11. We see planes blow up. We see planes explode. They can't tell people have shooted out, you know, parachuted out. They don't know what's going on. You know, you have the lead, which is of course piloted by Bucky. They're having to lead the mission. The planes and the planes in the air that is like they're kind of commandeering and kind of keeping a bubble around these bombardier pilots. They have to go away because they've lost gas, and it's just a chaotic thing. And there's just some scenes and shots that just will not leave my mind. Like I said, you know, for one instance, like when they've officially bombed, they've lost everybody but one plane, and the plane has to like defend itself. They have to be like they're doing like, maneuvers that would cause like G-force gravity or like, weightless gravity. And then like the way they like the shift is like, you can see like the pilot's kind of like moving back like this and stuff like that. And like, you're watching that, and then there's moments where like, pilots and not pilots, but gunners and other pilots and stuff like that, and other, individuals are getting shot at. One gets destroyed, like half his face gets blown off, and it's just all this chaotic nature. But like I said, when they're moving around, they're trying to fight out the planes, it's really impactful. And then there's a scene that it completely blew me away. And this is like one of two scenes where they finally are able to escape the Luftwaffe, or the pilots of the German army, like fly away. They're officially done or whatever. And you see debris slowly falling all over the place around them, and it's like slowly falling to the ground, and you realize how bad this situation was for the flyover of Munster. You watch and you just realize that there's debris everywhere. It's like floating to the ground, and there's pilots that are dead, and there's our airmen that are dead. It's a really crazy thing to watch. And when you're watching earlier, when you see like engines kind of fly off and shear off, and there's planes exploding, it's so incredibly disturbing to watch, but it's so unsettling, but it's so thought-provoking, because you realize this probably kind of happened to them. I'm assuming it's in the book where they talk about seeing how pieces were just floating to the ground, and it's a crazy thing. There is a funny moment, I will say, where the guy's peeing into a condom, like an actual condom, and he just throws it out. I mean, you got to figure out how they had to pee when they were up there. He goes in the condom, he's like, bombs away, he throws it out the window. I'm sure that didn't end well for that. Maybe it just kind of exploded in the air or whatever. But yeah, that was one of the first scenes, was the pieces of debris falling over the place. But the other thing is, and you could tell that Anna Bodin and Ryan Fleck they learned a lot from doing Captain Marvel, which was not a great movie, but you can tell they learned a lot. Which, another thing, Anna Bodin and Ryan Fleck worked on Captain Marvel, which is Jude Law stars in that movie, and then they're working with his son, Rafe Law, who plays Jackson, who's the main engineer in this movie. Or in this show. So that's kind of a cool kind of trivia that they've worked together with his father and son. So I'm sure they were like, yeah, your father was cool, whatever. I mean, it is here or there, but I thought it was kind of cool. But the other thing that is kind of just like, it kind of blew my mind, is the slow motion scene where the bombing plane and the German Luftwaffe plane come in contact with one another, and as soon as they come across each other's bow, like it does like a Matrix slow motion, everything slows down. So you're seeing one pilot on the United States side looking at the German pilot in the smaller plane, and it's just a really cool shot. It's something that just kind of blew my mind, because when you think about how fast these bombing runs or these missions are going when they're up in the air, you never think about they don't see each other, so it's more like a because they're constantly flying, they're having to keep in motion, they're each attack is only lasts like a minute or two, and it's a really interesting thing to see, because you can imagine, like, if it were slowing down, if they looked at one another, how they would like appear to one another. It's like in that, this is kind of funny, but like in Hot Shots or whatever, Top Gun, when they go upside down and they're like looking at the pilot, it's like that thing. But it was a really cool shot, a really disturbing shot, but it was really impactful in a lot of respects. So I got to give them a lot of credit for creating that scene, because you can only imagine how chaotic and insane it is up there in the mountains, or up there in the air when they're flying and they're trying to bombs away the bombs and stuff like that and all that stuff. So. But because of the nature of the Royal Flush plane, of course, it gets destroyed, and of course, Bucky has to shoot out. I love when they're trying to eject out of these planes, and one of the airmen gets like stuck to the door, so they have to release the door for him to even be able to escape. I love the idea of like them jumping out of the bombing, the bombs compartment and stuff like that, and I like the fact that Bucky and the guy who's his like co-pilot are like debating who's going to go first, and Bucky's like, well, I'm the lead pilot, I'm the major, you have to do what I say. And so he jumps out first and blah blah blah. He lands unfortunately in the wrong side of the tracks when it comes to, he lands in Germany. So next episode, as you see from the incoming soon on Masters of the Air, he's gonna have to survive Germany, which I'm assuming was a real thing. He crash landed in Germany and has to find a way to survive, because they're looking for him. When it gets back to base, I love the little scene between Rafe Law's character Jackson and of course the two kids. They're up there playing with the plane as kids do, and they're learning a little bit from how to determine like 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock and stuff like that. And then one of the pilots, I think it was the 389th or 390th, lands, and they ask, you know, the people in the control tower, like, where's the 100th group? And the pilot says, you know, I like that there's no two-way communication, so you have no idea what he says. But the general or whatever says, you know, they didn't see anybody, and that's when the single plane from the 100th that will eventually be called the Bloodiest 100th lands, and there's a whole scene there which I found very devastating and sad, and just the nature of what this war is doing. And they try to, you know, they do the interrogation. They're like, you know, blah 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 plane with tail number, no record, blah 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 plane, no record. And you start to see how chaotic it can be up there. So taking record of what happens to these planes is very much impossible. But a couple of them they do recognize, and they do say that, you know, the plane was destroyed, and one of them gets really upset by it and stuff like that, and he walks away. And, you know, it's a really kind of sad thing, because you realize that a lot of people will die up in the air because of how chaotic and how, you know, one wrong move can put you in harm's way, or you're just not safe because you're constantly being shot at. It just shows how difficult and how much engineering goes into a World War II pilot, or just a pilot in general, and how dangerous that is. And, you know, from beginning to end, this episode just delivers on all fronts and just shows you how devastating that can be. And once again, because they lost all their troops and all their planes for the most part outside of one plane, it looks like they're going to shift to some different things, like with the Tuskegee Airmen and stuff like that. So I think this is a pretty good precursor to say that this is kind of the end. It's not the end, because you'll see like kind of the ramifications of what happened to the 100th with, of course, Crosby, and you'll see Bucky and stuff like that. But you're going to start seeing more and more different things, which I hope opens up some more storytelling elements of different characters that we're learning about. But it was a brutal episode with some really kind of iconic imagery when it comes to like storytelling and camera work and stuff like that. So I have to give it a 9.5 out of 10. I wanted more development from characters, but as you guys have said, that, you know, it's a book based off a book. But, you know, like I said, once again, you look at Barry Keoghan's character, he just kind of dies. You never hear anything about him. There's not really much story development on him, and I know I keep harping on that, but it's just how I feel. So overall, 9.5 out of 10. Really enjoyed it. Think it's the best episode of the series. I think it's one of the best episodes of television in quite a while. Definitely worth a watch. So with that said, that is my extremely long description, the story spoiler discussion for part 5 of Masters of the Air. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. Comments below. What did you think of this episode of television? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What, you know, if you have information about the Royal Flush missions and stuff like that, you know, the operation of deceptions, all that good stuff, so let me know. Anyways, thank you so much. If you like what you see on the channel, hit the subscribe button to join Movie Emporium. Hit that notification bell at the top to find what's coming next. If you like this video, awesome. Hit that like button. And as always, we'll see you guys on the next video. Peace out.